or towards the Kingswood.
Basically, 然后阿姨你就忽略了我。是的。
待会儿我们还要合影，知道吧？你是在。
阿姨看我新头像，我新头像。
真的，好，臭美。
过来看，这是明显啦。他们的语言啊，
It's more smoother when it's has more.
So you can just play around with it.
And this is normal?
You can figure it. Yeah, you could get okay, I feel we're gonna do it. I'm gonna save it. And so you just like I'm good at editing, not me. I'm good at
You have to focus. Is it auto?
very deep.
That's the only reason why.
Maybe next year we'll have one more. Yes. 我也不知道我在干嘛。我就不知道有谁。Oh my god. 来找你的照片。
Oh, right here.
Okay. What do you need help, Ajay? 我可以说现场小姐，被人迈着矫健的步伐走上讲台，只见他意气风发，满脸红光。Yeah.
I'll just record that. I'll just press this and then I'll stop it when it's all over.
Yeah, exactly. Just keep it rolling. You don't have to audio it all. Yes, I need a chair.
Actually, yeah, get.
你去把两个椅子。Yeah, you can even move around up there. I'm gonna grab you and. just be the director here. You can be the counselor. Well, if there's anything I can help with, just let me know.
'So faculty is going to come in from over there? They're going to come along.
Ladies and gentlemen, please find your seats. We'll be starting in just about 5 minutes, okay? Procession of the class of 2021. Please remain standing. I saw many of you starting to sit for the singing of our school song.
Hail Kingswood, Oxford, wyverns forever, we will always hold your memory dear. Raise high your colors, wave black and crimson, faithful light to our days spent here. All roads we've known here, all that we've done, will be a part of the path we've begun. Hail Kingswood, Oxford, wyverns forever, we will always hold your memory dear. Now as we leave you, our Kingswood, Oxford, we will cherish the days spent here. We will cherish the days spent here.
Please be seated. So, true story, I believe it was 40 years ago today that our own Rich Sharapa, our maestro over there, wrote that beautiful school song. So let's give it up for Rich Sharapa. Introduce those that are up here. I am Tom Dillo, head of school. My left over here is Mr. Brad Hoffman, our board of trustees. We have Dr. Dan Gleason, our head of upper school, and the wonderful Dr. Heather Wayne, who will be the commencement speaker. You'll be hearing from Dr. Wayne and Dr. Gleason in due time. The trustees are normally sitting with us up here, but due to COVID restrictions and wanting to create as much space as possible, they are live streaming from home today. One other quick note before we get started. It is a tradition at our school that we have the faculty parents and trustee parents of graduating seniors be allowed to come up to this stage and hug their child after they receive their diploma. So you will see a few people coming up to hug their kids. So without further ado, let me get us started here. Please welcome senior faculty member and history teacher Ted Levine for our invocation.
This community has waited so
patiently and so
caringly for this just to come
together. And I have
to say hello to all those who are streaming from China, my second home. And welcome to you, all friends, relatives, and families.
into the
class of 2021.
There's so many moments, so many memories defining your time here. I have my own to share with you. Some time ago, renowned author Richard Rodriguez once spent a day here. It was late in the afternoon when he met with a bunch of students and teachers, and he talked about his time in KO. Do you know what you have here, he said? You have a community who cares about you deeply. You have teachers who hear your voices. You have teachers who read every word you write. You know what? You may not have this again, not in college and not in life. And now comes your widening. You will soon have the big chance to explore complexities you have yet to see. At the same time, you'll sharpen and you'll find your single challenge the profound question you have to answer, the ambiguity needing to be clarified. You'll have so much information to explore what we can do. I know you'll find the wisdom necessary to figure out what we should do. During these past years, your endurance test called high school, we were floored by your performances, awed by your athleticism, challenged by your ideas, appreciative of your sensitivities. Your very long days here left little room for mind wandering and reflection. Last night, your class night, your reflections and your good humor showed your readiness to move on, to widen, and to sharpen. Last night, Sneha, you spoke of how KO is a time of changing anagrams. And Madeline, your new list of 35 goals, 34 checked off, just probably 34 more than my check-off list. For both of you, the evolution of new selves, and you reminded us how both our portraits and promises are always changing, and how this community embraces an ongoing reinvention of self and celebrates at once who you are and who you will become. Eden and Hannah, you're right. KO makes things happen, a community always encouraging, always widening, and how you and others create unique moments shaping your distinct journey through KO. Singers and dancers, your artistry offered brief yet deep glimpses of who you are. Glimpses of you we would never catch just passing each other between classes. And Sloan, from your very first KO day, you knew how a community's resilience is defined by involvement and embracing all. And Christina, you showed us how humor forges our bonds. Chris, in your words, confidence, creativity, acceptance, how little moments in the corners of each day form a community of caring beyond self. And Mike, how you never wanted practice to end. That's your farewell metaphor, Mike. You never wanted practice to end. We get it. Those of us who have been here for a long time are with you on that one. All of you, next year you will be, wherever you will be, you will have the time and space to widen and to sharpen and to think about the why. Why does your art resonate with you and bring you great joy? Why do you steadfastly pursue the complexities and ambiguities of knowing? Sometimes your answer will come to you only after some thought. Other times it comes to you in an instant. And there'll be mentors and scholars to guide your question shaping, but there'll be no one professor of wisdom and perseverance defining your why for you. And someday, very far in time from now, you will ask yourself, what have I made of my life? That which you wish to answer then, do now. To the class of 2021, you have been remarkable artists and scholars. You certainly impressed us. You will always have a community here who cares about you deeply, and to all of you, we wish you the very, very best. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Levine. I'd now like to ask Senior Mary Ellen Carroll to come to the stage to introduce today's commencement speaker, who is chosen by the senior class each year.
Hailing from Orlando, Florida, Dr. Wayne began teaching at Kingswood, Oxford 5 years ago, when our graduating class was still in the 8th grade. As an English teacher here at KO, she taught dozens of students about everything from proper sentence structure to essay writing to complex analyses of the human psyche. Her unit on Virginia Woolf's To the Lighthouse is still talked about by seniors who had her to this day. Beyond the classroom, she coached Forensic Union with Miss Caswell and led KO through dozens of debate competitions, international competitions, and even sent students to Worlds. Personally, Dr. Wayne has always been someone I could run a new speech concept by, explain a new complex extemporaneous speaking game to, or ask for advice handling rowdy underclassmen. In the middle of all of this, Dr. Wayne successfully defended her dissertation, Gilded Chains, Global Economies and Gendered Arts in U.S. Fiction, 1865 to 1930, and received her doctorate of English from UMass Amherst. In the past 2 years, I've had the honor of calling Dr. Wayne both my teacher and my advisor, and her office has been a place to laugh, cry, commiserate, and struggle through my senior thesis, all bolstered by her support and confidence. During the 2021 Min Jin Lee Symposium, which I had the honor of being a part of, Dr. Wayne led KO students to study an author for an entire semester and then invited Min Jin Lee to give a presentation and master class, and she designed an all-new work-based grading system under which my classmates and I wrote some of our best work in all our time at KO, and figured out how to do an entire symposium all on Zoom. Also in my last 2 years at KO, as my advisor, Dr. Wayne has received regular emails from me at approximately 11 p.m. every Sunday night. Topics include me panicking over nearly failing chemistry, panic about overdue work, or the classic title, all in lowercase, "Hey Dr. Wayne, it's May 9th and I'm not even halfway done with my senior thesis." With each email, I would receive a calm, measured response assuring me things were not nearly as bad as I thought they were, and when she was free the next day to talk out the situation in her office. Dr. Wayne, I may be breaking tradition by writing this speech at 11 p.m. on a Thursday night rather than a Sunday, but please pretend it's 12 hours prior and a Sunday night, and you're receiving this on your KO email and not in front of the entire graduating class, all of our families, and all of your colleagues. Hey Dr. Wayne, I graduate tomorrow and I'm freaking out because it just hit me that after that I'm never going to get to sit in your office and complain or play the Wikipedia game in your advisory group or derail your entire class plan by talking about some obscure historical figure only you and I have heard of. And I know your commencement speech is going to be great and I hope I can actually hear it over how much I'm going to be crying because I'll miss you a lot. It has been such a pleasure to be your student and advise you over the past 2 years, and I hope you know how much your love and support has meant to me and every other student in this class. Thank you. So with that, it is my honor and pleasure to welcome Dr. Heather Wayne to the stage as Class of 2021's commencement speaker.
Thank you so much, Mary Ellen, for that lovely introduction. And thank you, the class of 2021, for inviting me to speak to you today. I'm so honored. I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about myself when I was in high school. As Mary Ellen said, I grew up in Orlando, Florida, and no, we did not go to Disney World every day, although we did occasionally take a field trip to Epcot. For those of you who know me, it will probably not surprise you to hear that in high school, I was an avid reader. My favorite weekend activity was haunting the local Borders bookstore, R.I.P. Borders, a chain that no longer exists. I would camp out in the fiction section and try to decide my next read. Would it be Jane Austen or Virginia Woolf? Zora Neale Hurston or Charlotte Bronte? So, I was a reader, not surprising. What might surprise you, although perhaps not, given my encouraging teacherly persona, is that I was captain of the cheerleading squad. I could do a halfway decent cartwheel, and I got pretty good height on my jumps, but what I enjoyed the most about cheerleading was the opportunity to build a sense of community. We decorated athletes' lockers, we organized dances, we even began a beloved weekend cheerleading camp for elementary schoolers. So, when you've been in my classes and you've heard me say, "I believe in you, you've got this," or even occasionally, "You're all beautiful geniuses," now you know a little bit about where some of those pep talks probably come from. I was also an ardent feminist, though I didn't know it at the time, and certainly would not have called myself one for fear of being mocked by my peers. I sought out strong women in my academic work. I did research projects on Sojourner Truth and Marie Curie. I prided myself on defying false stereotypes that women aren't good at math, even though at heart I was really more of an English student than a math student. I won the top award in physics my junior year, and I earned a 4 on the AP Calculus exam. Now, sure, it wasn't a 5, but it got me out of ever having to take another math class again. And I also struggled to reconcile my feelings of ambition with the restrictive gender roles I was taught in my very conservative upbringing. I thought I was supposed to have lots of children and work within the home as a caretaker rather than outside of the home. But this didn't quite feel like what I wanted for my life. Given my academic disposition and the fact that I now stand before you as Dr. Wayne, PhD, it probably will not surprise you to learn that I was the valedictorian of my high school class, the top student in the class who also delivered a speech at graduation. Now, this sounds like a big accomplishment, but it's a little less impressive once you know that I had a grand total of 9 students in my graduating class. Yes, you heard me right, 9. In preparation for speaking to you today, I took a look back at the speech that I gave at my own high school graduation. Though I was prepared to cringe hard enough to pull a muscle when looking at my high school writing, I found only a few cringeworthy moments. And I also found a few moments that help explain why I eventually became an English major. I structured my speech around a poem by Seamus Heaney called Scaffolding, a poem that stayed with me from the moment I first read it in my 11th grade English class. I'm going to read the whole poem for you here. Masons, when they start upon a building, are careful to test out the scaffolding. Make sure that planks won't slip at busy points, secure all ladders, tighten bolted joints. And yet, all this comes down when the job's done, showing off walls of sure and solid stone. So if, my dear, there sometimes seem to be old bridges breaking between you and me, never fear. We may let the scaffolds fall, confident that we have built our wall. To my high school self, this poem was all about permanence and impermanence. I imagined the amount of time that builders take creating scaffolding, these temporary structures that enable more permanent structures to be built. In my valedictory speech, I reflected on all the scaffolds that were getting ready to fall for me and my classmates as we headed off to college. And I'll quote a bit from my speech here. 18-year-old Dr. Wayne said, quote, "Upon graduating from high school, we must leave behind the system we are accustomed to and jump into a school that is exponentially larger, where we don't know the expectations held of us, where we don't know anyone, and we must start anew, testing out our foundation. The teachers whom we've worked so hard to please and the relationships we have painstakingly formed will no longer be there to depend on. At times it will be frightening. At times it will be exhilarating. At times it will be overwhelming. But we must know that the turmoil isn't ripping away at our wall. It's merely the fall of the scaffolding." At 18, I thought I knew the difference between walls and scaffolding. I thought I knew which structures in my life would be permanent and which structures were only temporary supports, scaffolding that I could allow to fall, leaving a secure stone wall behind. But here's the thing. I was wrong. There are things I held dear in high school that I thought would be with me forever. Things that, to my surprise, have fallen away in the years since. My political ideology was torn down and reconstructed. My ideas about family, career, and identity crumbled to reveal something quite different underneath. My belief system was rattled and reformed. To be honest, My high school self probably wouldn't recognize the grown-up me who's standing before you today. But although many unexpected scaffolds fell for me, things that I thought would always be there, they left behind a foundation that is all the firmer for their loss. My sense of empathy, my intellectual curiosity, my conscience, my desire for justice, my love of literature, and yes, even my cheerleader-like enthusiasm. These building blocks of who I am have always been there. They just looked a little different when I was younger. I've been thinking a lot about Seamus Heaney's poem this year because you, the seniors, have felt the fall of a lot of scaffolding recently. You've lost sports seasons, musical and theatrical performances, high school milestones, time with friends, in-person classes. Some of you may have lost people you love. Some of you may have lost your trust in the people and institutions whose job it is to make sure we're all safe and that we all have what we need to thrive. Some of you may have lost a sense of well-being or struggled with your mental health. These changes have been painful. And yet, some of these changes have actually been good. I asked you all to share your thoughts with me about some of the things that have stayed the same for you over the past year and some of the things that have changed. And here are some of the things that you shared. A lot of you seem to have found a stronger sense of self this year. One person said, quote, "I'm finally starting to understand who I am." Another said, quote, "The pandemic has caused me to learn more about myself, the good and the bad." And another said, quote, "I have experienced a positive change in how I value myself and my close relationships with the people who matter most to me, which has made me feel more prepared for my future." Someone else said, "I have learned how to show up for myself. Nothing will make me as proud or as happy as showing up for myself does." You have been forced, perhaps earlier than many teenagers, to identify the solid foundation of your selfhood, turning inward during this year of isolation to face, understand, and care for your inner self. In addition to your stronger sense of self that has emerged after this terrible year, something that really moved me in your responses was your care for each other. One person wrote, quote, "I feel like as a class we kind of grew closer as the years went on. It has actually been kind of nice, feeling as if there's some sort of unspoken understanding between seniors, which only grew as the year progressed. Your friendships have helped you get through this year," which one person said made them, quote, "excited and happy to know that we as humans can unite despite a time of loneliness." As another person wrote, quote, "My friends are all supportive and give out positive energy around me." And the support from your teachers has been unwavering as well. One person wrote, and Mrs. Caswell will probably be able to guess who this is, that something that has remained unchanged this year is, quote, "teacher commitment. I love how I can stop by Caswell's office every day and greet her by sneaking up and scaring her." You've found ways to seek joy and connection even in a year full of grief and loss. This year, many of you have identified the relationships that are made, in Heaney's words, of sure and solid stone. And I hope that as you grow older, you will remember what you learned during this time about how to find and hold close the people who build you up. So, this year has disrupted some scaffolding and revealed the walls that exist underneath. You've found some constants you can rely on in your lives. As you grow older, you'll probably feel the fall of more scaffolding. Certain friendships will fade away while new ones take their place. Your careers will take you in unexpected directions. your understanding of the world may change. And the scaffolding that has fallen this year has also revealed some walls that were previously obscured, walls that are ugly, walls that create barriers, walls that are decaying, walls that are dangerous and that need to be torn down. We've lived through a double pandemic this year, witnessing the ravages of both COVID-19 and the centuries-long pandemic of systemic racism. On a societal level, this double pandemic has exposed the crumbling walls of our unequal and uneven healthcare system. It has exposed the urgency of shoring up our country's foundational promise that we are all created equal and endowed with the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It has exposed the pervasive cement of inequality that wrongly holds so many of our institutions precariously in place. On a personal level, this year has revealed structures in my life and in my teaching practice that were not serving me or my students in our collective work toward justice and liberation. For example, the infrastructure of my English curriculum left unstable from the excess of texts that do not sufficiently reflect the beauty, complexity, and abundance of humanity. I was able to see the harmful barriers created by grading policies that surveil and punish rather than motivate and encourage, that perpetuate my own unconscious biases rather than creating space for students' ingenuity, that teach conformity and compliance rather than experimentation and creativity. I was able to work on dismantling and rebuilding my own racial identity as a white woman, confronting my unearned privilege, taking stock of my underdeveloped racial consciousness, and messily but earnestly laying fresh bricks forged in the fire of social justice, self-reflection, curiosity, and ethical purpose. I know I have a lot of long, hard work ahead of me, but when I look to the future, I'm excited to envision what I might build next. As I draw this speech to a close, I want to invite you too to imagine the kind of future you want it to build. What walls do you want to tear down? What walls do you want to build? What scaffolds will you let fall? What foundations will you reinforce? Some of you shared the future that you want to build with me. You said that you, quote, hope to build a future of a more caring society, one that not only understands the struggles of others, but is willing to help. You said that, quote, adapting to the COVID restrictions required us all to find creative solutions to connect with loved ones and our lives as a whole. I hope we bring that ingenuity and compassion into the future. You said that you want a future that is, quote, healthy, happy, and full of love, to, quote, make a more inclusive world for others, and to create, quote, a future where everybody loves. So I'd like all of you to take just 30 seconds and envision this future that you hope to build. Pause, breathe. You can even close your eyes if you want to, and imagine the future that you will build individually and collectively. And when I say 30 seconds, I mean 30 seconds. I'm going to time you. All right, so let's pause and imagine the future. Thank you for taking the time to imagine the future together. I'll close my speech with the words of the great science fiction writer Octavia Butler, mother of Afrofuturism. A true visionary with an unmatched genius for seeing the world for what it is and imagining how it might be otherwise, Butler worked tirelessly to achieve her dreams, sometimes waking up at 2 a.m. to squeeze in time to write before her day job began. Butler manifested the future she wanted to see. On the back of one of her notebooks in her archives, she wrote a vision for her work, affirming, quote, "I shall be a best-selling writer. This is my life. I write best-selling novels. My books will be read by millions of people. So be it. See to it." And indeed, Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower, originally published in 1993, finally made the New York Times bestseller list just this past year in September of 2020. So, in the words of Octavia Butler, imagine the future you want to build. So be it. See to it. Thank you.
Dr. Wayne, thank you so much. What a powerful message to this class. We so appreciate it. So now seniors, all that lies between you and the diplomas sitting on this table behind me is me. I have a charge to give to the class of 2021. But before I do that, I'd like to acknowledge some important people. And I promise you I'll try to be brief with my charge. I know we're eager to get to them. First, I think it's important that we recognize that an event like this doesn't happen by itself, particularly in a year of COVID. It takes an army of dedicated people, and I am thankful to all who played a part in making it happen today. I'd like to give a particular shout out to our buildings and grounds crew who have worked tirelessly to set all this up and make the campus look so beautiful. I think a special thank you also goes to our field generals, Sherry Malinowski and Justin Wolfrat, who spent countless hours behind the scenes bringing all the pieces of this puzzle together. So thank you, Sherry and Justin. The Board of Trustees of our school are normally up here on stage, as I said, but they're watching virtually this year to ensure that we had enough space for all of you. Though you don't see them on a daily basis, they work tirelessly to ensure that our school is on good footing, that we respect our past while moving boldly into our future. They all have full-time jobs, but give so much of their time, their energy, and their resources to our school. So please join me in thanking the Board of Trustees. And I wanted to give a particular special thanks this year to Brad Hoffman. This is Brad's final commencement as the chair of the board. Brad is a proud and committed alum of Kingswood, Oxford, and has been one of the longest serving chairs of the board in our school's history. He has done so much for Kingswood, Oxford, more than anyone here really realizes over many years, and we are so very grateful to his service. Thank you, Brad Hoffman. Can I ask the parents of graduating seniors to please rise? Parents, thank you for partnering with us and entrusting us with the daunting but noble task of educating your children. Seniors, your parents have been your biggest fans, and have made more sacrifices than they can count in time and money and energy to ensure that you have become the thoughtful and well-adjusted young adults that you are. Please join me in thanking our senior parents. And finally, last but certainly not least, I'd like the faculty to rise, please. Seniors, where would you be without this incredible group of talented and caring teachers who brought you into their lives, shared their passions with you, they challenged you, they picked you up when you were down, encouraged you to try new things, and believed in you every minute of every day. This year, in particular, our teachers had to make so many adjustments, from teaching fully online to figuring out lesson plans for students that were in person and online at the same time. And it was an unsettling experience, to say the least, to walk into a classroom this past fall. But they did it because they care, and they're filled with love for each and every one of you. Please join me in thanking the amazing, the incredible, the one-of-a-kind faculty of Kingswood Oxford School. So the tradition at Kingswood Oxford is that the head of school gives a charge to the graduating class. I suppose it's meant to be some kind of a go forth and prosper speech, or go deal with the barbarians on the other side of that hill. I don't know. I'll be honest with you, after the year that we've had, it was hard to figure out what exactly to charge you with. Or perhaps there was simply too much to say this year. Your senior year has been defined by a global pandemic that has cost the lives of over 600,000 in the United States and 3.5 million people worldwide. It's a year in which many have lost jobs and mental health crises have proliferated, particularly among young people. A year in which our national conscience has been shaken, woken up to ongoing racial injustices. A year in which our politics have become even more toxic and the cultural fault lines of our nation have widened even further. A year in which we witnessed an assault on the Capitol. So that's enough for anyone's lifetime, much less one senior year. How do you make sense of all that? It's got to be awfully confusing. This is the world you are inheriting, and I think there are at least a couple of lessons that you can take from the experience you've had that I hope will help you manage through difficult times ahead in your life. First, if there's any lesson that the pandemic has taught us, it is that we take a lot of things for granted in our lives. Who knew a year ago that we would soon consider it a privilege to travel to Massachusetts or New York, to sit together with friends and enjoy a meal, to hug your grandparents, to go to school? Imagine the privilege of going to school. It was not until we were denied the regular, even mundane elements of our lives, those things that we never would have called special in the past, that we realized just how important they really are to us and how lucky we are to have them. There's an old story about a farmer who goes to seek advice from a philosopher that I think serves as a decent example of what I'm talking about. The farmer says to the philosopher, "We're so poor. Our house is tiny and my family is constantly at each other's throats," laments the farmer. The philosopher ponders on this problem for a few minutes. "Bring one of your goats into the home," he says. "Come back and see me in a week." The farmer and his family spend the next week living with their stinky goat. A week later, the farmer comes back even more distraught. He says, "It's awful. Our house has gotten more cramped, my daughters are fighting with each other, and I tripped over the goat and hit my head." "Good," said the philosopher. "This week, bring in 2 more goats and a cow." And so the farmer does so. This cycle of complaints goes on for several weeks until all of the farmer's livestock are in the house. Finally, the philosopher smiles and says, "Now, put all of your animals back outside." The next day, the farmer comes running back. "Ah, I see now. Our house is huge. We don't know what to do with all the space. My family stopped fighting, and we're glad to get those darn animals out of the house. Oh, and I haven't felt this happy in years." The farmer had the same family, the same house, and was just as poor, but was a lot happier. It is often not until our situations change on us or we experience loss that we recognize its real value to us. When I was your age, I heard this same message, it was 1989, from someone on stage, a different stage, though I think I had more fun hearing it then than you are now, since mine was at a concert in Frankfurt, Germany, with my friends listening to the 80s rock band Cinderella. Anyone? As they belted out their one-hit wonder, maybe 2 hits, 3 hits, "Don't know what you've got till it's gone." This same sentiment was expressed in a poignant scene in the movie Good Will Hunting, when the therapist, Sean McGuire, played by the late great actor Robin Williams, reflects on the loss of his wife and explains to the troubled young genius, Will Hunting, that you'll have bad times. It'll always wake you up to the good stuff you weren't paying attention to. You'll have bad times, but it'll always wake you up to the good stuff you weren't paying attention to. You can be assured that there will be difficult times ahead, and you will, unfortunately, experience loss again. That's life. But I know you are better equipped than most other classes that ever came before you to weather those storms. My charge to you is to take stock, to draw from this experience that helped you get through. Every once in a while, think back to this year and remind yourself to appreciate the things that we take for granted every day. How fortunate we all are to have a roof over our head, a warm bed in which to sleep, and the support and love of friends and family who will always be there for you. You don't need much more than that in this world to find happiness and to get through hard times. The other lesson from this year that you showed so beautifully is that when things get tough, don't swim against the current. There are things we can control in this world, and there are things that we cannot control. This year was out of control. In those moments, you have 2 choices. You can lament and ask God why he has it out for you. You can yell at the universe. You can be angry and upset. That's normal. But you will find peace and be able to manage through those difficult times once you accept the new reality and adjust your expectations. Acknowledge the impermanence of life, that sometimes it is what it is, and go with the flow. It's like the advice I've heard about surviving a riptide, which thankfully I've never been in, when one is swimming at the beach. If you're ever in a riptide, the one thing you don't do is try to swim back to fight against the current. It's a hopeless battle, and it can be fatal. If you're caught in a riptide, you allow yourself to go out with the current, take you out a bit further, at which point you can either swim parallel to the shore for a while to escape the current or allow it to bring you back in by itself later on. Either way, you're better off accepting that new reality than swimming against it. Lao Tzu, the ancient Chinese philosopher, explained the power of living by "it is what it is" in the 6th century BC. He said, "Life is a series of natural and spontaneous changes. Don't resist them. That only creates sorrow. Let reality be reality. Let things flow naturally forward in whatever way they like. Accept what is and adjust to that new reality, and rest in the comfort that because everything changes, this too shall pass." Class of 2021, you did this so magnificently this year. You didn't swim against the current. You didn't curse fate. As the world spun out of control around you, you went with the flow. You Zoomed. You wore masks. You socially distanced. You played shortened sports seasons and sang in virtual choirs. There were many sacrifices you had to make, but you learned to appreciate things that we used to take for granted. You were dealt a bad hand, but you said, "It is what it is," and you made the most of it. You showed such grace this year, such resilience, such patience, and we're so very proud of you. Take these lessons with you and use them to help you navigate when the seas grow stormy and you're faced with having to make sacrifices yet again in your lives. Know that our doors are always open for you here at Kingswood, Oxford, and we can't wait to hear about your adventures when you return to say hello. I will leave you with a somewhat overused Gaelic blessing, but overused perhaps for good reason. May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face, the rains fall soft upon your fields, and until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. Thank you, class of 2021. Now let's get down to business. I'm going to invite Dr. Dan Gleason, head of upper school, and Mr. Hoffman to come up to assist me in the presentation of diplomas. I think that's good, yeah? Good. Okay. We're starting over here first.
Madeline Elizabeth R. Carroll. Mitchell David Otterino. Evan Richard Banning. Kate Elizabeth Beck. Isabel Grace Berkemeyer. Lily Marie U. Brezinoff. Caitlin Delaney Budzik. Isabel Barrett Burke. Sean P. Burnham. Evan Khalil Bygrave. Matthew Daniel Bizwicki. Connor Ryan Canaday. Nathan Capodice. Mary Ellen Murphy Carroll. Sierra Suzanne Shagnon. Shriya Vaishnavi Chalikanda. Geetika Chandragiri. Ishwan Chen. Mark Caholan Diadabo II. Huashu Tommy Don. Catherine Maureen Daniels. Brandon DeLucia. Michael Charles DeMio. Ronan Durkin Dillo. Margot Juliet Dogowitz. Ziyu Aaron Dwan. Sloan Lily Duval. Sydney Ann Dwyer. Justin Edwards. William Charles Elliott. Ling Felix Fay. Braden Charles Flowers. Cameron Reed Forsland. Kyle Gilbert Frankel. Lucy Ann Gardner. Ian Alvin Givens. Riley Thurman Gravel. Melissa Joelle Hasbrook. Emma Ann Henry. Isabella Page Hers. Ryan Vincent Ignatowicz. Elijah Isaiah Infante. Isabel Bennett Jacobson. Mary Hope Kalazewski. Chaitanya Bhaskar Karanam. Emily Margaret Karasik. John Joseph Kinney V. Walter Neil Kraus. Henry Brayton Kriebel. Jingyun Liang. Christina Liu. Henry Lucian Mandel. Sadie Mae Margolis. Keegan Jameson McMahon. Benjamin Nathaniel Merritt. Carter William Mashanik. Hunter Robert Mashanik. Christopher H. Morris. Ahana Ria Nagarkadi. Eden Nenshadi. Adam Henry Paschuk. Rashid Adanika Patterson. Olivia Flanagan Pear. Drini Puka. Ava Rose Radmanovich. Ethan Boaz Reisner. Sneha Ram. Risha Ranjan. Samuel Noel Rapp. Pablo Noé Sharma Royan. Isabel Mercer Rome. Braden Michael Rose. Colin Agustin Ruiz. Sophia Catherine Schultz. Jacob Benjamin Schwartz. Brooke Elizabeth Seaver. Christopher Devin Sienko. Samuel Robert Smith. Sydney Lawrence Smith. Renice Carey Sterling. Victoria.
No. It's okay. Yep.
Victoria Diane Swanson.
I thought you didn't get the other one.
Nikki Barlow Taylor. Adam Ray Theodoru. Madeline Julia Thiessen. Brianna Kathleen Tate. Annalise Riona Vaughn. Jaden Chase Weinstein.
Congratulations. Good luck next year. Like, now you got it.
Landon Ryan White.
I don't know, we got some people standing. Class, why don't you rise for a minute? Ladies and gentlemen, if I can present to you the class of 2021 newly anointed alumni. Congratulations, class of 2021. Please be seated. It is a tradition at Kingswood, Oxford, that immediately following the ceremony, graduates go through a receiving line of KO teachers. The tradition is that one isn't really a graduate of the school until they have gone through that receiving line, shaken the hand or fist pump or whatever you're comfortable with, and thanked their teachers. We are excited that we're able to bring that tradition back today. When the graduates walk off the senior green, they will proceed to the receiving line right behind me here. Once they go through that line, they then will be officially KO graduates. It's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Rob Kife, our most senior faculty member of 44 years. You're welcome. And to offer us a benediction to close things up. Mr. Kife.
Class of 2021. During the past 15 months, you've endured a pestilence of difficulties, disruptions, and disappointments. Instead of proms, you had protocols. Instead of discussions, you had distancing. Instead of musicals, you had masks. But you've not only endured, you've prevailed. The courage, resilience, and fortitude you've demonstrated has inspired not only your teachers, coaches, and parents, but also the students in the classes behind you. As you step into history today, your legacy of leadership will always abide. Thank you, and Godspeed.
Faculty first. Faculty, please rise and go ahead to the receiving line. If I could have everyone else rise for the recessional. Students, too.